Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today I'm going to speak about an episode from Season 5, The Heartbreaker. If you're enjoying these, please do hit like and subscribe. In this episode, directed by Ralph Waite, Curt's younger sister, Vanessa, comes to visit. She has left her husband and is off chasing her dreams to become a singer. She finds herself quite taken with Jason, particularly since Jason is also a musician and pursuing his dreams of working with music, singing, writing songs, playing piano, guitar, that he's going to the Conservatory of Music. So all of this is very appealing to Vanessa. I noticed some ice cream continuity challenges early in the episode when some of the family is waiting for Vanessa to arrive on the bus. So there's points where you see that the ice cream that I am holding is about half eaten, and then it's still half eaten, and then in another shot, it's more than half eaten, and then a little later, it is less than half eaten. Then it is only a quarter left, and then a little bit later, it is once again more than half left. So those types of things are really, really difficult to keep consistent. Sometimes the same thing you might notice with a glass of water or a glass of wine or something where the levels keep going up and down and up and down. It just shows you the difference of the edits and when they used one shot, a wider shot, a closer shot, maybe a second take in part of it. So really a super challenge for both the actors, the continuity person, and the editor. When Jason first encounters Vanessa, it is at Curt and Mary Ellen's house. Jason comes bringing some greens for Mary Ellen that were from the Walton garden. He comes in, and I love this shot that Ralph did where they're sort of circling each other in the entryway of the house and keep missing each other until finally they do connect. Then a bit later, when Jason is leaving, they have a little bit of a callback to that because Jason starts to leave, then he turns back to say goodbye. She's not there, and then when he turns around, there she is in front of him. She has circled around. So a cute way to begin and end that scene. When Jason meets Vanessa, he mentions that he plays at the local roadhouse, the Dewdrop Inn, and says she should come by. Well, she does. I did notice that Jon was playing the piano at that point, and he was playing Ironing Board Blues, which was a song that he wrote at one point in another episode when Grandma was ironing. So I thought that was kind of fun. There are a number of scenes with Vanessa and Jason in this beautiful little area by the water. They sort of almost make it seem like it's an island because they first arrive on a little boat. But then later in the episode, Jason actually brings her via land, and she comments about thinking that you could only get there by boat. But it's an idyllic little area, and it was part of the Drusilla Pond that was on the back lot of the studio, but in this case, they just chose a little spot there that we didn't regularly see and made it look like just a little hidden gem of an area. In the next segment, Jon and Linda Purl, who guest starred in this episode as Vanessa, caught up over in England. And Jon and Linda spent some time together visiting, and they were kind enough to shoot a little video that I will share with you in my next segment. But one of the things they talked about was something, a little mishap with one of these scenes with the boat. So make sure you stay tuned and catch the next episode where they tell you what happened with the boat. Jason falls hard for Vanessa, despite Curt warning him that his sister has wanderlust in her soul, that she can't stay in one place, that she is restless and feels the need to pursue dreams and things like that. Jason thinks he really understands her, and they connect on this level of music, and Jason writes her a beautiful song, Vanessa's song, that he sings for her. And they sing a number of times together, and they are working up some music, and they go in, and she auditions for the Dewdrop Inn, and Thelma, who runs the Dewdrop, says, come and sing any time. And at one point, Vanessa and Jason are singing. She is singing Vanessa's song, Jason is playing guitar, and they are interrupted by someone arriving that is someone that Thelma knows and is evidently a fairly prominent country singer of the era who's touring around nearby. And he's there with his manager, and he knows Thelma. And when they settle into their table, he encourages. It's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, we interrupted you. Please sing." And when Vanessa starts singing again, he's quite taken with her, as is the manager. And Vanessa starts getting all kinds of ideas in her head about what the possibilities might mean, because they're heading to Nashville and they're going to be at the Grand Ole Opry. When Vanessa misses one of their collaborative meetings to work on music and stuff like that, Jason he's hurt that, she didn't show up, and he runs into her as she is catching a ride back into the area. And Jason's upset with her that, "Where were you? And we had something planned." And she gets quite huffy with him about how he doesn't own her and everything. And Jason, for the first time, sort of sees Vanessa's selfish side and her need to put her own needs and her desires and what she wants for herself ahead of anything and anyone else. He ends up going into town to help John Boy distribute some of his newspapers, the Blue Ridge Chronicles, and actually sees Vanessa pull up into town in this fabulous car with Country Joe, this singer. And they go into this hotel, and Jason begins to see the writing on the wall. Ultimately, Vanessa does come to say goodbye to Jason, because she is going to head off with Country Joe Martin and his band to Nashville. Jason is heartbroken, a la the title, The Heartbreaker, but he knows that he'll get over it. But right now, he's just not ready to forgive her, and he begrudgingly sort of wishes her luck, and she leaves town. The subplot of this episode focuses on Grandpa. Early in the episode, you see him with Olivia, and they are putting together some greens to send to Mary Ellen. And Grandpa talks about how turnips and mustard are two of his favorites of this time of year. And it always makes me think of Will with his personal degree in botany and how much he knew and loved plants, and the places in the stories where these characteristics became part of Grandpa as well. A little later, there's a scene where he's sitting talking with Elizabeth, and he's going through packets of seeds and talking about what could be planted now, what couldn't be planted now, and Elizabeth is asking other sorts of questions while they also talk about these seeds and stuff. So I loved that we saw that side of Will, both as Grandpa and that piece that was really very much a part of Will for real. Ben suggests to John Boy that he include in his Blue Ridge Chronicle some lighter stories. Maybe he shares some short stories, and John Boy says he doesn't have time to write short stories. So Ben suggests that perhaps John Boy print some excerpts from his novel. John Boy thinks about this and decides it's a good idea. So the story he decides to publish revolves around Grandpa. A little later in the show, Grandpa is very flattered by this idea. And there's a point where the newspaper is now printed, and you see this fun shot that Ralph set up where several members of the family are all collectively reading the story as Grandpa reads it out loud. And it all goes well until he gets to the word vulpine, which he doesn't know. So he starts looking it up in the dictionary. And through a series of words that he has to look up, he comes to think that John Boy is calling him a liar, and that he has printed for everyone to see that John Boy thinks Grandpa is a liar. So he is done with this, and he is very upset. John Boy ends up talking with Grandpa and explaining that although vulpine and foxy and stuff could mean deceitful, there's another meaning which is crafty, fox-like. And as Grandpa thinks about this, and John Boy shares other stories with him, remember when you tricked these people in a clever way so that we won this contract, and they were trying to take advantage of us. So as Grandpa works his way around this, he decides that that's a very apt description of his wiliness, and then decides that yes, John Boy shouldn't change that word, that it fits him perfectly. Several telling points about Ralph's directing are always, for me, the way in which he crafts clever shots and the way he sets up the camera. In this case, they are in Ike's store, and some of the men are playing pool, but you see through a big coffee grinder Corabeth on the phone, and she is gossiping with Fanny Tatum about Jason and Vanessa. But I love the shot of Corabeth on the phone there. Another aspect of Ralph's directing is that he always creates real life. So in this scene where John and Olivia are discussing Jason and Vanessa, Olivia is very concerned about Jason dating a married woman. Even though she's left her husband, they're still technically married, and to Olivia, that's just not right. And she is afraid that Jason is getting way too involved. But throughout the whole scene, while they're having this conversation, John is working on his numbers, his ledgers, probably for the mill, while Olivia is mending clothes. So the realism of life continues. They have conversations, but they have lots to do. So they multitask, Walton style. That's what I have for you for this segment about the episode The Heartbreaker. I hope you'll join me next time when Jon Walmsley and Linda Purl share their thoughts, a little bit about this episode, some things that they recall about it, and also just about their long-term friendship. We've all known each other a long time, and Jon and Linda have some special memories they share. So please do join me for that. And I will be back with more behind the scenes of the Waltons and more Ask Judy also. Thanks for watching.